Hello and welcome back to Harriet's History Vlogs. Today I will be discussing more Scottish history, which was connected to my previous video about the death of Alexander III. Today's topic that I will be speaking about is the Subjugation of Scotland, which took place in 1296, after the new King of Scotland, Balliol, loses power over Scotland and Edward I tries to occupy Scotland as part of his empire. The first event that took place in the Subjugation of Scotland was on March 11th, when Edward started to get frustrated with Balliol. He believed that he was not doing a good enough job of keeping the Scottish nobles in check and under control, so Edward decided to take action and invade Scotland. Edward gathered his army at the River Tweed and announced their besiegement of Berwick. The choice of city was not random, as Edward realised that Berwick was one of the most important port cities to the whole of Scotland, and was the most densely populated. Because the town was so densely populated, it made the Scots more ready for the English. They managed to gather 10,000 men from the city and other kingdoms such as Fife and Lothian. The Scottish felt confident in themselves as they believed that they had enough well-trained men to defeat the English. However, Edward's army had massive strength in numbers and skill, and the Scots soon realised that they were not going to be able to attack the English. Edward decided to offer the people of Berwick 3 days to surrender, but in an act of defiance, the town leaders did not respond, which made Edward agitated and took it as an insult. As soon as 3 days were up, Edward ordered his troops to attack. Within hours, Berwick was almost completely ransacked. 7,500 people were killed under Edward's instructions that no one should be spared. After taking over Berwick, Edward spent 4 weeks rebuilding its defences and making it stronger. After the rest of the city folk fled the city, it was repopulated with English people from all over England and Northumbria. The next event that took place, which truly showed the English's military power, was when in 1296, Elwerene, a member of Edward's nobles, was sent to capture Dunbar Castle for the English. The noble in control of the castle had already agreed to hand over the castle and surrender, but because his wife was very loyal to the cause of Scottish independence and was a commoner, gave the castle to other Scottish forces. The English noble, Werene, after hearing word of the handing over of power to the Scottish forces, decided to go to battle. During the fight, Scottish commanders mistook repositioning of English troops as a retreat and charged out formation. This was a crucial mistake made by the Scots as they decided to charge the English, but the attack was an utter failure. The English men quickly and effectively killed many of the Scots. The aftermath of this attack was catastrophic for Scotland, as many important figures in Scotland were captured, such as nobles and guardians. This left Scotland without a united front and enough leaders to effectively rule its lands. It also made nobles feel more protective over their own lands and less focused on keeping the whole of Scotland safe. After the Battle of Dunbar, there was a complete collapse of resistance throughout Scotland. Balliol failed to attend the Battle of Dunbar, which meant that it left Scottish troops ununited as ever, even in this crucial moment of Scottish independence. Many important nobles such as the Earl of Dunbar, Earl of Angus, and Robert, Earl of Carrick, felt that putting up a fight for independence would be futile and swore their loyalty to Edward. This was important as it meant that the already weak Scottish army had fewer resources and even a smaller chance to fight back. After many attempts at trying to gain support at Kincardine Castle to bring together the remaining uncaptured noblemen failed, John knew that he had no other choice but to surrender his throne and no longer be king. John went to negotiate his surrender with Bec, the Bishop of Durham. At the start of the negotiations for Balliol's surrender, he had the opportunity to become an English earl in compensation for losing his kingdom. But after Edward found out about his French treaty that Balliol had made at the start of his reign, the offer was torn up. The Scottish alliance with France was signed on October 23rd in 1295 in Paris. This treaty arranged the marriage between the Scots and the niece of Philip IV. This put John directly in a breach of oath to Edward, which meant that he was now an enemy of England. The remaining nobles got John to write an apology to Edward that begged for his forgiveness and his mercy. If he didn't write this apology quickly, then there would be no chance of Scotland ever getting its independence back. John now knew that he had no other choice but to resign from the throne. A large majority of the Scottish nobles had no confidence in Balliol and recognised him as a coward. He also knew that if he didn't, that Edward would quickly invade, meaning there would be no chance for Scotland to keep any of its independence. John's written surrender was accepted by Edward on the 10th of July, meaning that he was no longer the King of Scotland. As Balliol was being dethroned, Edward removed the royal coat of arms off his body. From after that point to the English and the Scots, he was now known as Tuam Tabard, which meant empty coat, highlighting that everyone thought that he was a very bad leader. This now meant that Scotland no longer had a leader or a king. In conclusion, Although the Scots did try to put up some resistance against the English, it was very ineffective as they did not have a strong leader that they could rely on and give commands. The English quickly and effectively took over Scotland and highlighted the beginning of English occupation in Scotland.